An interesting first practice day for the Belgian Grand Prix, with Formula One's August break coming to a sudden halt. Well, first thing that happened was that Kimi Räikkönen spun on cold tyres coming out of La Source. I guess that kind of happens when you've had a bit of a break, but didn't really account for Kimi a few minutes later misjudging the entry to the pit lane, would you believe, in the Alpha, hitting the tyre wall, apex tyre wall, and then hitting the concrete wall as well. Anyway, welcome back to Formula One. It was a good day, a lot of action. Esteban Ocon had a huge lose coming out of Pouhon, and Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen both went off up at Les Combes and hit the tyre wall there, bringing out red flags and all sorts of other drama as well. I guess Esteban, in the tyre smoke of coming to a halt at Pouhon, which was a weird thing in a way, because he just lost it coming out and then just went like that, like in a sort of B-grade movie. You'd normally think they would do that, but I guess that's what Pirellis do these days when you have so much lateral friction on them. But I think he would have felt a lot better when he saw Charles and Max going off later on as well. Having said all of that, the weather was iffy at Spa on the Friday. And both sessions, the initial runners went out on intermediates before coming back in and going to slicks. But it was no easy thing, because it was always slightly wet offline. It was always slightly wet in braking areas, and certainly the curbs. From bitter experience, I can tell you that the curbs at Spa are incredibly wet, even when the track is dry, let alone when it's semi-wet. So that's why we saw quite a few incidents, and that's why I think it's quite difficult to get an accurate snapshot of where everybody is at the moment. Formula One's graphics are telling us that Lewis Hamilton is going to be on the pole by a whisker from Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen. But of course, that is not taking into account the 5-place grid penalty that Valtteri has as a result of that Rani Gazoo at the first corner in the Hungarian Grand Prix. So in other words, it's going to be Lewis and Max. It is going to be close. We saw a bit of a snapshot in the second session. They were all out on medium tyres when they all decided that it was okay to be on slicks. And at that moment, that's when both Valtteri and Lewis recorded their fastest times of the session, and therefore of the day, 44.5. They didn't go as quickly as that on the soft tyre. We'll get onto that in a minute. At the same time that they were on the medium doing 44.5, Max Verstappen was doing a 45.1. So that didn't really tell us very much, other than that maybe Max was running more fuel at that point, or maybe Max just didn't get a run in because of traffic or whatever. For me, a better snapshot was the next run when they all went out on soft tyres. And again, we don't know what fuel they were running. And at that moment, Max did a 44.4, which made him a little bit quicker than the 44.5 that the Merc drivers had done on the medium tyre. But oddly, on that soft tyre, the two Merc drivers at that point were doing 44.8, Lewis Hamilton, 44.9, Valtteri Bottas. So presumably they were running more fuel. But how much more fuel they were running than Max Verstappen, we don't really know. But what did emerge was the pattern, as predicted, of the Red Bull being really quick in Sector 2. And when I say really quick, I mean like 0.2, 0.3 quicker than the Mercedes through Sector 2. But then in Sector 1, the same difference, but in reverse, the Mercedes quicker than the Red Bull. So that is going to be the dilemma that the two teams face going into qualifying and obviously into the race. Assuming, of course, that all things remain equal and we don't have a wet race, which, of course, could happen at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, as it often has in the past. And if you haven't seen the video we put out yesterday of John Surtees winning the 66 Belgian Grand Prix at Spa for Ferrari, when it was dry on the grid but wet out the back, have a look at it. A lot of emotional stuff there from John Surtees. But getting back to the point, perhaps the most significant thing of all is that on that little cameo of everybody on the soft tyre, Max was 320 kilometers an hour on the Kimmel Straight doing that lap. Lewis, 325 kilometers an hour on the Kimmel Straight. Doesn't it seem a long time ago that Mercedes was saying, oh, we're so slow on the straight? Here they are at Spa, sort of lap for lap, 5 kilometers difference on the Kimmel Straight. Now that could, of course, be significant in the race. It could be significant in the way both teams go into the race. In the world of DRS, you could be thinking, if you're Red Bull, Max Verstappen, well, obviously we're getting beaten on that straight. Obviously we're getting beaten in Sector 1 as a result, but we have that advantage in Sector 2, and we have DRS, so we can kind of live with that and let's see what happens. Equally, if you're Mercedes, you're probably thinking, we've got that great top speed advantage, maybe we can run a bit more wing in Sector 2, it might be useful for the wet. And there was an interesting little moment this morning when Lewis, out early in FP1, was saying the car doesn't feel particularly quick in a straight line. I don't know how you judge that, but anyway, Lewis can. That's what makes him who he is. But I guess he was thinking relative to Valtteri. And anyway, the message back to Lewis was, no, you're a little bit slower than Valtteri, but that is to be expected, which is an indication I guess, that Mercedes are thinking with Valtteri, with that 5-place grid penalty, they're going to try and run as little wing as possible, making him as quick on the straight as possible so he can pass as many cars as he can as possible in the race. But that wouldn't apply to Lewis Hamilton. So let's just get back to the dilemma. If you're Red Bull, you've got more chance of looking after the tyres. And it was just after, it was only like his second lap, when he was back on medium tyres, that Max Verstappen said the front tyres are graining, and then almost a millisecond later he went off at Les Combes. He lost the rear, admittedly, but it might have been losing the rear, trying to get the power on to cure a bit of understeer from the front, which was the graining. We don't know for sure, but that's what it smelt like. And if that's the case, and graining is going to be an issue at Spa, ambience are quite cold, got to say, track temperature obviously cold as well, then being good in sector 2, which is the sector that does all the damage, is not a bad thing at all in terms of having a longer stint and being able to look after the tyres. And that'll be what Mercedes will be thinking about going into Saturday and Sunday. I'm not sure Red Bull can do much about top speed in sector 1. They're probably going to have to live with it. As I say, it seems a long time ago that Mercedes was saying, oh, we're so slow in a straight line, because right now Max will probably be justified in saying the same thing. So there we are. We're coming back from the August break, and we've got Red Bull Honda on one side with their package, which is almost the flip side of the Lewis Hamilton Mercedes package, which is what makes Formula One what it is. What else? Ferrari didn't look good in Sector 2 or in Sector 1, which means that they seem to be struggling. As I say, Charles Leclerc went off. Carlos Sainz looked all right when he was out, but sort of, was not quick when the others were quick, and that's got to be a worry. But we have seen Ferrari get it together as the weekend developed, Silverstone being a very good example. So let's hold fire before we really say they are in trouble. Of the others, Sergio Perez was there or thereabouts. I mean, he's just re-signed for 2022, so you can expect Sergio to be sort of relaxing a bit and enjoying life and going into that. I mean, James Hunt always used to get annoyed with Riccardo Patrese because it was in his mind, Riccardo only tried hard before signature time, and as soon as the contract was signed, Riccardo would sort of back away and think, yeah, got the drive for next year. I'm not saying that's the case with Sergio, but it kind of looks like it. Certainly did on the Friday anyway. Best of the rest, McLaren, Aston Martin looked pretty close. There was a nice little cameo early on, actually, when it was semi-wet, kind of wet. Yeah, they all went out on inters and then they went to slicks, but it was certainly by no means a fully dry track. And we had Lando out there driving beautifully. This is in the morning. And then George out in the Williams, and both of them had relatively clear track, not much traffic, and it was good to see the two of them. So that was Friday. I'll be back tomorrow with more reflections after qualifying, and then on Sunday for the race. In the meantime, congratulations to Jack Doohan, son of Mick, on the pole for the Formula 3 race in his Jetcraft Trident Dallara, and he was super quick in Sector 2, which is probably good news for Max Verstappen and Red Bull. That maybe is what the Spa lap is all about.